Members of the public jury, it's lawyer time again, and I'm your unlawyer, as I like to say. Why? Because hasn't anybody just wanted to kind of know how the law works, but not really end up an a-hole lawyer? You just kind of want the knowledge so you understand how life is actually structured around us. That's exactly why I went to law school. And in fact, before I even became a lawyer, I was working for a jury consultant. And jury consultants usually are not lawyers. In fact, that's an asset. That's why, like Dr. Phil, he was Oprah's jury consultant originally. You want someone that can kind of keep the lawyers from lawyering everything too much to the jury. So I've always had this mindset of just being a regular person that happens to understand the law, and that's what I want to bring to you guys, right? And I'm going to cover this trial every day. And in fact, I'm going to give you a really cool present. If I can get my subscribership to like 500, I will just live stream and take all the questions you want and just answer the questions about what happened in the trial today or any other legal stuff that's going around in any of the Trump cases, okay? So let's just jump into day one of Trump's trial. Like, what does that look like? Like pretty much every other criminal case. And I was a criminal defense attorney as well as a jury consultant, like I mentioned. So trial is my bag. Now, what happens is, you probably saw in the news, a pool of people came in, the jury pool of around 96 people, which I think for this type of case is kind of small. I've done some criminal trials where there was close to 100 on something that wasn't high profile at all. And as you heard, the jury was asked by the judge, basically, who here is going to have trouble being impartial? Bunch of hands went up and they were just summarily dismissed. A lot of times if someone says they can't be fair, one of the attorneys might try to rehabilitate that person. In this case, the judge dismissed the individuals. Also know that in jury selection, the judges ask a lot of the questions in the beginning, and they can essentially voir dire the jurors individually or right there in the group and eliminate them, right? And counsel has an opportunity to do it too and take turns, okay? So yeah, that process, by the way, you call it voir dire in Washington, or voir dire if you're in Texas, or a number of other ways if you're illiterate. And basically what it means is to get up and tell the truth. And that's the most fair thing you can do. So when someone raised their hand and said they couldn't be fair, that was actually them being very fair to the defendant, because the defendant is entitled to an impartial jury. I think that's actually extraordinarily hard for a polarizing, well-known person like Donald Trump. But I do believe there are actually people that can, despite their love or hate for the person charged with a crime, just look at the elements of the crime and go, did the prosecution check those boxes beyond a reasonable doubt? If yes, guilty. If no, not guilty. Pretty simple. I like to think that I could do it just the same, even though I've even been a defense attorney. And also the veneer is that kind of jury pool, the people that have not yet been selected in the pool. That's another kind of term you might hear tossed around. Another thing that takes place before jury selection, and sometimes in breaks between jury selection, is something called motions in limine, or also pronounced limine. And those are threshold motions, meaning you're at the threshold of trial about to start. So there's a lot of things that you want to sort out before the case begins. So then you kind of understand how you're going to do your case. Because let's say I have some really critical evidence that I want admitted, or a really critical witness I want to testify. Well, if my opponent's going to object to that, we should get that sorted out before the trial actually starts. So then that way, I can plan my trial accordingly at the same time, so can they. So motions limine sort all sorts of things out like that, like what evidence is going to be admissible and what evidence isn't going to be admissible, who's going to testify, the lengths of trials, all sorts of things. You can actually even fight over questions to ask the jury. A lot of times jurors will get a questionnaire before they even see the courtroom. And that will let you as an attorney see the answers to those and get a good idea of how that person is. So then when you go and question that potential juror, you're in a better place to not get lied to necessarily, and you'll have a good direction to take your questions. So let's talk about, because I mentioned, what evidence can come in. We all heard about evidence being relevant or irrelevant, and irrelevant evidence is really generally not allowed in court. What's allowed in court is relevant evidence, and this is from New York's evidence rules. Evidence rules in all states, they are all pretty darn similar. In fact, a lot mimic the federal court, where Trump's also going to have a trial. The New York rules are actually a little bit different than the federal rules or the rules in most states, but the substance of the rule is the same, right? And so, what's relevant evidence? Relevant evidence is evidence having any tendency to make the existence of a fact that is of consequence to the determination of the proceeding more probable or less probable than it would be without the evidence. And here's a little bit more kind of descriptive words that involve like cases that have litigated this evidence rule, and just sort of a key words here. Is the evidence material in the litigation? Okay, so like, do we have a piece of evidence that actually helps prove or disprove the elements of the crime in this case, right? And so, again, let's just go back to that again real quick and try to just make it a little more elegant. So it's evidence having the tendency to make a fact of consequence more probable or less probable. Does this piece of evidence make... All right, so let's say Trump falsified a document, allegedly. Does this piece of evidence make that document being, that false document more or less likely to exist, or his making it false more or less likely to have happened? That would be the relevance test. But here's the thing. Not all relevant evidence is admissible, even if it is relevant. And you've heard talk in the news today of some evidence being excluded that although it was relevant, it was prejudicial. And you'll hear that in the news. They're saying, oh, the evidence is coming out because it's prejudicial. That is actually not a legitimate objection to evidence. They're leaving out something important, and I'll show you that in another New York evidence rule here. Okay? The exclusion of relevant evidence. A court may exclude relevant evidence if its probative value, so how will it prove something? Its probative value is outweighed by the danger that its admission would create undue prejudice to a party, confuse the issues and mislead the jury, prolong the proceeding. We usually see this worded as wasting time, or could unfairly surprise a party and there's not really a remedy for it. So again, the court can exclude it if its value, its probative value, how well it proves something true or not, it has to be outweighed by the danger that the prejudice is undue. Okay? That's the key. Okay? In the federal rules, it's worded something like, if there's a substantial danger that the weight of the evidence would be outweighed by its prejudicial effect. Because, and this is critical, all evidence is prejudicial to one side or the other. Everything's prejudicial that comes out in court. If it's not prejudicial, it's probably not relevant. So the question is it so prejudicial that it actually, like it says here, confuses the issues, wastes time, would essentially sit in the jury's mind in a way that would make the trial unfair. And so that kind of sucks sometimes, because sometimes there really is good evidence, but the other things that it would do to a juror's mind would be so prejudicial that it changes the fairness of the litigation to either side. So just kind of pro tip, if you just hear that objection, Your Honor, prejudicial, that's not an objection. If you hear someone on the news saying that evidence was excluded just because it was prejudicial, that is not the whole story. That's half the story. A couple observations. Okay, we're hearing, Trump is yawning in court a little bit. This is going to be hard for him. It's pretty rare that Trump has to be boxed in sitting for like 8 hours at a time. right? And, trials move very, very slow. If you've ever been on jury duty, you probably understand. If you're a lawyer watching, you definitely understand. Trials move slow, and it's not a chance for Trump to kind of do his Trump thing. He likes to kind of dominate the room and, crack jokes and just say whatever he wants. It's going to be agony for him, and if he gets on the witness stand, it's really going to be agony, because this judge will have no patience for the typical, when Trump gets asked, did X happen in an interview, he'll talk about something completely different, okay? So that will not fly in court, okay? The issue of contempt has come up because, Trump has violated this gag order. What's a gag order? It's basically saying, hey, you're a party to this witness, or party to this trial, you're a witness, you're an attorney, you're not allowed to say certain things outside of this courtroom, because it could influence the trial in an unfair way. And I think in Trump's case in particular, him saying bad things about the court staff, and the family members could put those people in danger. I think that's the biggest concern and the most legitimate reason for the gag order. But here's the thing, Trump wants to violate it. And I do believe that Trump wants to be held in contempt and put in jail for like a day. He could go up to 30 days under New York law, but the fines are only $1,000 per incident. My personal feeling, and God, if there was one reason to make this video viral so it could get in front of Judge Marchand or someone around him, to go, please do not throw Trump in jail no matter what he does, unless it's completely egregious, because that is basically a great way to get him reelected and make him this, political prisoner messiah to his followers. Because this election is just only going to be about turnout, right? And if they're very, very excited because they see this oppressive government that he does a good job of making them think is going to be oppressive over them, well, what works better than, throwing this guy in jail for just free speech, right? Like, all he's doing is free speech. He's not telling anyone to commit crimes. He's not yelling fire in a crowded movie theater. He's just kind of saying these obnoxious things, but they are putting people's safety in jeopardy. And that's been proven all over the country, and people that he has disparaged. So he is violating it. There's no question. I just think in the interest of the American Republic that we don't have Trump go to jail in contempt. We fine him, and that money should be used as, to pay for security, to protect anyone that he is disparaging. So I went over the penalties for contempt. Also, is kind of an important differentiation. The contempt must be in the presence of the judge for like an instant action. Like, okay, you're going to jail. Okay, you're getting fined. That needs to be in front of the judge. Otherwise, you're entitled to your due process, which is notice and a hearing. And so that's what took place today. The prosecutor let Trump know, we are going to make a contempt motion because of your tweets and stuff. And so there will be a hearing on that a week from Wednesday. It will probably start with a monetary penalty, with the warning that if you violate it again, there can be jail. The judge is never going to say it is jail the next time. That's rare. Judges never like to say what they're going to rule on something that hasn't happened yet, because it shows that they're not going into it fair. But it will be made clear to Donald that jail is on the table if he keeps violating, okay? And that's the fine, $1,000 a day, up to 30 days. And I want to say, again, get me 500 subs. I've had me videos with over 500 views. So just please click subscribe. I'm not trying to do this, because I need to raise money on YouTube. I want this to get out there, right? So I have lots of questions when I live stream. If I live stream with 35 subscribers like I have now, I'm not going to get any other questions, besides what's a lawyer living in his mom's basement for, or whatever, right? And that's not true. I live in a big house on a big side of town. But I want some good questions coming in, maybe as soon as tomorrow. As soon as we get the subs there, I think you guys will really love having access to an experienced trial attorney to answer all your questions about what happens in court. It'll be fun, and I'll probably be giving away some monetary prizes. Like, for instance, if someone takes the topics I'm talking about right now and indexes them with timestamps in the comment section, throw your Venmo or Cash App down there, and I'll send you a few dollars. Okay. I think that's all I pretty much want to cover today. Again, I'm going to jump on this every day and post up for you guys. So put the questions in the comments you want answered. If there's something I missed here about that happened in day one, put it down there. I'll make another video. I'll make a short. I'm just going to keep covering this. I'm here to serve you and give you guys like the best experience for. Oh, I almost forgot to do these tweets that I had up initially on Trump's Truth Social. So this one, he's complaining that, he can't go to Barron's graduation, says he's prohibited. So first of all, that's not true. The judge has not made a motion on that. The judge says you have to attend your trial. But for significant events, and I've seen this many times, for things not even as significant as a high school graduation of your son, where the judge will postpone the trial for a day, just have the jury not come in, and allow the defendant to attend the graduation, funeral, even like medical appointments, and then just the trial resumes the next day. So we don't even know that he's been prohibited yet, but of course Trump doesn't care about that. He doesn't care about giving true information. He just cares about having his base angry and thinking everyone is against him and they're the victims. The other thing is now I'm not going to be allowed to attend the presidential immunity argument in front of the United States Supreme Court. Why does he need to be there, right? Those are highly rehearsed, highly prepared oral arguments. And it's not like, when you're sitting with your lawyer at counsel's table and your lawyer's cross-examining someone and you can be like, oh yeah, like ask him that, or you pass a note. These are, the time frames are very tight. They know what they're going to say. The judges are running it. Like Trump would literally add no value to the oral argument. It's all recorded, so he's going to hear it all. So there's really no reason for him to be there in the first place. It's kind of silly. And honestly, I can't remember if he went to the last one either. Certainly he has no capacity to understand what's going on and would probably just be there for the political theater. And, he does it again. He'll explain to my wonderful son, Barron, whose mother I was cheating on with a porn star a few months after he was born, who was a great, fantastic student that his dad will likely not be allowed to attend his graduation. So at least here he, acknowledges that it's not actually official, that he's not. Oh, then of course, how can we resist skipping this? I have just learned that the highly biased judge in the Soros-appointed DA Bragg's witch hunt, George Soros appointed a judge. Like, this stuff just never happens. He was on TV the other day saying that babies were being born and then executed. One final thing, Trump put this message out: all hell will break loose, talking about New York City and his trial. Sound familiar, right, folks? Like, before January 6th, it's going to be wild. Just a little more ways that he's, stirring the pot just enough, so it's obvious to his followers, but to where it's not, inciting a riot or anything like that. So I just want to point that final thing out. Remember, get the subscribe going, guys. Once I hit that number, I will be live streaming this, and you can submit all your questions to me, because I'm sure I'm missing stuff, and I will answer every single question you ask about the trial. All right? I'll see you then. Lawyer time is over, and this unlawyer is out.